Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Hair Metal Rules podcast. Today on the podcast, I have none other than Tom Tracey. He is the man that created the Hair Metal Rules podcast theme song out of the graciousness of this poor guy's podcast. He did it out of the kindness of his heart, and it wouldn't be a podcast without him and my wife Erica pushing me to do it. And I've been asking him, you know, probably for over a year to be on the podcast, and he's like, what do I have to offer to your podcast? Well, you have to offer a lot, man, because you're my buddy, and we've hooked up on Instagram, and we share music, and you're a very talented man. I love to see your posts on there with your toboggan on and your filter playing some tunes from time to time. Hey man, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for coming on the show.
Man, thanks so much for having me, dude. This is really, it's just amazing. It's just so cool to see how far it's come so far, how far it's come. And yeah, I'm just excited to be here and just talk music with you, you know?
Well, it's good. Like I say, it's good to have you here. This has come a long way from sitting there typing out a script to sit and listen to, and I mean to sit and talk out, looking at a wall, trying to pretend to be talking to somebody. That's a hard thing to do, but I'm getting a little bit better at it. And you've encouraged me many days when I've hit you up, and man, I don't want to do this no more. It's just not working, but it's fun, you know.
Yeah, your fans, your listeners, we love it because you talk music, you know, and it's a time machine basically for all of us too. It brings us back to, like you say, like you said many times, it takes you back to a simpler time, our youth, of course, and just a fun era, a really amazing era. And this podcast gives us like this kind of behind the scenes, sort of where are they now, you know? And you are the true, like I say, you're the OG hair metal revival. Can we put that term on you, maybe?
Sure, I appreciate the kind words, man. We're pretty much the same age. You know, I grew up in the '80s. Like I said, I think that was pretty much my opinion, the best decade to have grown up in. And you're a big '80s man, and you like rock music and hair metal. You have a lot of different '80s things that you like. And I know you and I were talking a little bit earlier. We had to get everything set right. We were talking about some Duran Duran and some Power Station and some, bands like that. And the '80s wasn't just hair metal. The whole '80s, I think it was great, especially when I was in high school. You know, you had your hip hop, your rap group that hung out. You had your Madonnas and your Cure, and list goes on. You had your hair metal guys that went to the concert on Friday night and wore their T-shirts on Monday morning. That was your badge of honor, to say you
Yeah.
actually went. What was music like for you in high school?
It was basically my first few albums were all of that. You know, you got Led Zeppelin 4, Ozzy Osbourne's Bark at the Moon, Motley
Right.
Crue Shout at the Devil, Duran Duran Rio, Culture Club Color by Numbers. Boy
Right.
George is a genius.
Yes.
Men at Work, Business as Usual. You know, you got some of just the rock and roll from there too, like your Rick Springfields and your The Outfield. You know, those guys, the Hooters.
Oh yeah.
Billy Idol, Rebel Yell, you know, just a lot of the pop music, the rock music, and the synth stuff, the post punk. And then, you know, yes, of course, the hair metal and even the heavy hitter metal, you know, Megadeth, Metallica, and some of that stuff. So, yeah, pretty much all of it, really, you know. One
You
of
know,
the first cassettes I got was this KTEL radio station,
K-Tel.
some combination, and it had, I don't know, maybe Eagles were on it, a Zeppelin song, but you had like Heart, their Magic Man, you know. That
Right.
was one of the true progressive rock songs, and what a great song. But so those are, you know, just some of the names. Of course, in this podcast with you and I getting together, we're going to miss mentioning 95% of the stuff, but time restraints, I guess. We can
Well,
we can talk on our own time too.
exactly right. You
Yeah.
mentioned a lot of bands. you mentioned the outfield. Your Love is one of my favorite songs, and that was such a talented band. You mentioned, I believe you said the Hoot. Did you say the Hooters? Did you
Oh
say the
yeah,
Hoot?
the Hooters with the All You
That
Zombies.
Yeah, that's what I was just getting ready to say. I love that song when it comes on the radio.
And
That people don't realize that, and we danced. They also had a pretty dark type song in Zombies,
yep.
which was great. I love to hear that, and I remember I was at the BMX bikes. Okay, we raced BMX bikes and did the tricks and all that stuff. And there was a movie that came out. It was called Rad, and it was about.
Okay.
You need to check it out if you're ever into that. Anybody that was into BMX bikes back in the '80s, watch the movie Rad, and there was a song on there by Real Life called "Send Me an Angel." You remember that song?
No,
No?
I don't.
Come on, man, you've heard that song. For "Send Me
I
an
mean,
Angel right now."
yes, of course. Now I do. By title, I don't. Yeah. Don't forget, man. Interject for a moment. You have introduced me to a dozen bands that I didn't even know. But go on.
Okay, what? Okay. No, I was just saying, you mentioned, that was the great thing about the '80s. You know, if you couldn't find a genre of music you liked when you were in high school, you might as well just go, crawl in a hole somewhere. You know what I mean?
There was everything, wasn't it?
What was some of
Yes.
the since we've been following each other, what's
Yeah.
some of the bands that I have popped up there that you gravitated to that you actually liked?
Okay. Yeah. Immediately, I loved Shark Island.
Right.
I'd never heard of them. I don't know how I missed them, but I did. And Shark Island's album, I don't the one from like the late '80s. I forget the title of it, but
Law and
that
Order.
album is phenomenal. It's got almost this like the cult type of vibe to it. A few
Yes.
other bands. It's just a great album, and I love listening to it. I've listened to it numerous times in production, working or whatever. Another one is Cold Sweat. What an amazing band they are. I never heard of them either. Um, you know, you get through all these genres and you know all these bands, and it's just like, wow, there's so many you don't know. And that's why it's great connecting with you and many of your listeners through Instagram and everything too, it's just great conversation. You share a ton of things. There's a lot of discovery that happens within this community that you've built. Another band though would be Sweet Savage, most recently, Chris Sheridan. I mean, that album, it's got that old crew feel to it a bit. And
Yes.
it's original. It's original to them too. But I really love that Archive. It's called Archive on Apple
Right.
Music.
Yes. Right.
Yeah, it's like they put it there 2004. I know it's from way earlier, but that whole album is just phenomenal. Those songs are great. So those are a few. I mean, there's been so many more. I mean, Julie and I have talked about it while we watch and listen to the podcasts. Like, oh wow, this stuff's cool too. So we'll go check it out. And yeah, I can't remember all of them, but it's been. I know it's been your double digits for sure.
Well, the Cold Sweat, the lead singer of Cold Sweat is from Fayetteville, North Carolina, which is probably about 30 minutes from here. And I just remember him over the years starting out in a band called Gibraltar. And they were just to go up and down the East Coast kind of band. And then he hit big with Cold Sweat. And like I say, saw them back in high school at a small club called the Flaming Mug. And you have one that I believe you really like. I believe you like a band called Vane.
Vane, yes, yeah, that's been great to listen to too. Absolutely, yeah.
No
Yep.
Respect.
Dude, it's awesome. And it's such a great way to get more of the glam that late 80s, early 90s glam metal too, through all the stuff you post. I mean, it's awesome.
Well, you have music on iTunes. You're an avid. I say you're an avid because when you're not working, which is about 98% of your day working and with your business, you produce music and make music yourself. What inspires you? I know some of your music has a religious vibe to it, and in this world we live in, Tom, I think there needs to be more of that. I'm not here to preach to anybody, but
Yeah.
folks, we live in a time now where when you were a kid, you see things now that you never thought you would ever see in your life, and we have to live with it, deal with it. But what inspires you to write music, record music? What are your inspirations?
Yeah, that's gonna start back in high school, I'm sure. You got Kiss for sure, was one of the
Right.
rock bands that just their rhythms and the melodies, the hooks, the choruses and everything. One of the bands that I think back to is Crosby, Stills and Nash. And obviously their harmonies and their melodies and stuff, Wooden Ships,
Right.
Sweet Judy Blue Eyes, all those songs too. One of the albums that actually got me playing the acoustic guitar and press and record on the JVC boombox on cassette way back in the day was was actually GNR Lives. Because that was the first time where I was like, wow, you take a band who's serious. They're at that point when GNR Lives came out, Appetite was already there.
Right.
So they were already massive. But it kind of showed me there was an easier, accessible side with even a little jokey kind of music with you could play with the acoustic. Like obviously, Used to Love Her and One in a Million and stuff, those songs on there, that EP. That EP was probably a big part of why I started creating acoustic songs back in the day, I'd say. And then you got Skid Row, the I Remember You, 18 in Lives, and Poison with Every Rose Has Its Thorn. The simpler ones to play, you kind of get your stuff self moving a bit. You learn the simpler songs, which they're not simple to sing, but I'm just saying, the simpler ballad types. And I guess those might be where it started. And then through the years, the Cure would kind of jump in there and kind of influence certain ways that Robert Smith's chord progressions and just the way he writes,
Right.
stuff. But so I don't know. I guess that's the start of where, I'd be
It's hard
coming
to
from.
believe Guns N' Roses can throw Appetite for Destruction out, and just the things I've seen, you know, when they hit Hollywood, it completely changed the sound of music. It's amazing how a band can come on the scene and it's like, oh my God, what is this? What am I listening to? But my
Right.
point is to go from Appetite for Destruction and Patience, I Used to Love Her. That band can be that loud and that booming, but they're so talented enough to sit there and pick out an acoustic song, Patience. You got a little whistling in it, but a band that hot can create a song that great.
Yep.
Says a lot for a band. I love bands that are tight. One of my favorite bands, of course, is Fate's Warning, and the
Yeah.
album Parallels.
Hmm.
Those cats, I've seen them. I haven't seen them live, but I've seen live performances. When you can be right in the middle of a song and stop and talk to the audience and pick right up on the next chord, that's
Yeah.
some talented dudes right there.
That's yeah, and that's funny you mentioned that album. That's one of my favorites. It's probably in the Desert Island Conversation. Um, that and Queensryche's Operation Mindcrime are the two
Oh yeah.
albums that you and I started talking about in
Yes.
DMs and Instagram. Remember that? And that's
Yes.
how we started connecting and talking about music. And here we are. Yeah,
I have seen
absolutely.
Queensryche as many times as I could over the years. And one tour was they played the whole Operation Mindcrime album from start to
Yep.
finish. And I wanted to see that so bad. I wanted to see, they had screens in the back. I wanted to see how they incorporated the words, the sounds, you know, off the album. Is anybody home? And you hear Mary, right before songs. I wanted to see how that was incorporated. And those guys, they never paused once they started playing it. And my jaw was dropped because, I don't believe in love, breaking the silence. Michael Wilton and Chris DeGarmo, they talk about Robin Crosby and Warren DeMartini as a team. Those two guys together are incredible, and it was a shame, years later, DeGarmo left, and they've had some guitar players in and out of there, but Michael Wilton, he all the melodies and the leads and all that, he plays a whole lot more now than he had to back in the day. But yes,
Yeah.
Operation Mindcrime, I would say it would be on my desert island. most
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. That tour, they called it Operation Live Crime, right? I saw
Yes.
that. I saw that in Chicago here. And I think they were with, was it Suicidal Tendencies or Megadeth? There were a couple bands with them, but yeah, the performing of that full album was absolutely phenomenal. Bucket list, really.
I saw them when they did Operation Live Crime, and they were with Type O Negative.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I had listened to, because Type O Negative redid Summer Breeze. The song Summer Breeze makes
Oh,
me feel fine.
right. Okay. Yeah. I didn't know. I didn't hear
It's
it.
on their very first album, and I ain't never really listened to Type O Negative for. I like their music; they're a little bit darker, but this is when Operation Live Crime, when they did this album, it was on into probably 90, 91. Everybody wanted to hear it in its entirety, but yeah, that was interesting. A combination Queensryche and Type O Negative. They
Yeah, that
look like
is.
vampires and real
Right.
slow, gloomy
That
kind of music, but it was
that
still
down tuning, that deep droning. Yeah, they're cool. They're a cool band for sure.
it was still great. It was still great to hear that no matter what. So you do have music on iTunes. Tell people what you have on iTunes.
Well, I put out an album with
Sure.
Not the Things of Earth, Tom Tracey. It's 10 tracks. Some were written a long time ago, some were written just up to a couple years ago. And it's a total variety of music, and it's also a lot of session help, like
Mhm.
session guitar players and
Right.
production, all production. I didn't touch a knob on anything. I would send files, email them, with our technological reach and just the global, those abilities now. I connected with some amazing musicians and producers around the world that like I literally still talk to this day,
Right.
Tommy Temp from Argentina, Simon Jones from Ireland. You got Jeremy Brons in Belgium. I mean, it's really cool that there's zero barrier and it's just anyone, anyhow, and if you connect and just the abilities to bring influences and ideas to a project is absolutely awesome. So yeah.
I think it's great. I've talked to people before, and I think it's pretty awesome. Back in the day, uh, you sat in a studio, you had a booth, you did your guitars, you had a booth, you did your drums in, you had a guy in there singing, playing back. I think, I guess it was probably harder back then, but I have talked to people before that it was a little bit easier then because everybody's in the same room and they can say, okay, you missed this. Let's try this. I can do it right now. But I do think it's incredible the technology we have today. You can have, if you got 4 people in the band, 5 people in the band, they can be in separate parts of the country and record something and mail it to each other, email it, however how you airdrop it, whatever people do. Put
Yeah.
it all together, and you've never laid eyes on each other physically,
Yep.
but you talk and you can put an album together. There's a lot of bands out there nowadays that, yeah, we're scattered all over the country, but we still put albums out. Technology's come a long, long way since 60s, 70s, even the
Yeah.
80s. Does that make it easier as an artist? Does that
Oh,
make it
yeah. Well,
easier?
yes, I mean you can put together a complete mastered song in a couple days, which I guess the professionals can do that anyways.
Sure.
But for me, this is a hobby, okay?
Right, right.
So being able to put it together this way and like I'd really love the guitar to do this and it all just happens with people all across the world. It's so cool. It was one of the it was one of the most fun things I'd ever done in my life, obviously, getting to put that together and the relationships that happened from that album. It's really amazing. Still
Yeah.
communicate sometimes with some of these folks daily, or at
Well,
least a
that's
few times a week. And it's just, it's a just cool. It's a fun way to do a project. So yeah. And it's the only way I could do a project. I don't have time to go to studios.
right. Yeah.
I mean,
Studios and money to go to a studio to record, I imagine. It's
I
expensive,
imagine
I'm
I
sure.
wouldn't even know that. Right. I wonder if that's come down because of,
Oh, yeah,
I don't
right.
know. Yeah, maybe that's eased up a little. I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, so fun.
So everybody, I started talking to Tom probably over a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, and just putting stuff on Instagram, and Tom told me he really liked, and Tom has helped me out tremendously. And when I decided to do a podcast, my wife's like, either you do it or quit talking about it. And you have copyright laws on everything. And I was trying to think of something I could just grab a piece of something, to be an opening for it. And lo and behold, I asked Tom to come up with something. He said, well, give me just a little bit and I'll come up with something. I had no idea he would throw me out what he did. And I have just a separate file on my computer whenever I do a podcast to drag and drop the Hair Metal Rules podcast theme on there. And, I even still have the video you sent me, when we
Original,
were
like
doing it.
here's an
Yep.
idea. Oh God. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
But
pretty rough.
I admire you for being, because, I've never played a guitar before. We've talked about this. I have one sitting over there in the corner. Never picked it up, tried to, just didn't have the patience. But when it comes to air guitar, man, I know
You-
every chord, I know every string movement. I could hold my own on that. But anybody that can play an instrument, I had a friend in high school. His name was Jason Rollins, and Jason had played piano since he was small. But Jason was one of them people that never took a lesson in his life. Jason would sit and listen to a song, and he taught himself how to play piano. He'd listen to a song and go over there and play it 5 minutes later. I admire anybody that can play an instrument. You think about music, Tom. Music is, I think, one of the greatest gifts God gave us. Plus, He gave us ears to listen to it. And
Yeah.
you can hear a song, and no matter where you are, you know where you were at when you first heard that song. It brings you a memory to your head. It might have been a girl you liked. It may have been a friend you were hanging out with. It may have been a trip you went on. But that's what I love about not just 80s music. Me and my wife listen to yacht rock radio a lot on
Yeah, oh yeah.
satellite. And that's no offense to anybody that's listening that's an artist on yacht rock radio, but that is cheesy, mellow rock music. I love Bread. I love Crosby, Stills, and Nash that plays on there. They play some Billy Ocean on there. But when we go on a long trip, we put on that
Oh
and we
yeah.
sing to the top of our lungs. I'm glad no one's
Yep.
in the car when we do this, but to me and Erica, we're Sonny and Cher, brother, and we
Yeah, good. That's what music is supposed to do,
yeah,
right? You know?
exactly, exactly.
Yes.
So
It's to consume and enjoy, man. Yes.
exactly. So you we talk a lot. Sometimes we go a month because I know you're a busy man. What do you do when you're not making music?
I run my own t-shirt business.
Right.
Basically decorated apparel. We do for corporate, we do for, sports uniforms, school spirit wear, things like that. And then a big part of what we do is tournament merchandise
Right.
at sports tournaments. So baseball, football, all sports. And we press the shirts on site there. We have all the swag and all the accessories items, and that's what I do. And you build a lot of relationships, a lot of contacts within all that, and that's what I do in the daytime usually. Besides my little 30-second cover songs on acoustic guitar when I can squeeze them in between like emails and that.
So you have kids?
Yeah, I got a couple sons here. They're grown now, young men now. So that's how we've been able to kind of jump back into the home music thing, because we took a pretty big hiatus 20 years ago to, be dad with the school and youth
Right.
sports and all that stuff. And we enjoyed that. We, definitely, definitely wanted to be a part of that. We were at our baby shower. Real quick, little story.
Sure.
We're at our baby shower and at a coffee shop, and it was a public place, but we had our little section. And an old lady walked up to Julie, and she just rested her hands on Julie's stomach, And she was probably
Right.
6, 7 months, 8, I don't know, something in there, And she just started saying like, enjoy it. It goes so fast, and this is do all these things she was saying, these wonderful things, right? Well, that's left an impression in me, big time. So I definitely, I remember that to this day. I'm sharing it with you now. That kind of, that really stuck in me to, do what you obviously do what you need to do there, and do what you want to do there, and it was wonderful. And now that they're grown, they're got 23 and 20, so they're intelligent, successful, they're funny, they're, athletic, they're just, they're motivated young men. So it's really awesome, really proud of them. But
Well, they've
now
got
they're
a
older. They don't want to talk to me every,
sure.
so here we are back to music.
Well, they've got a great dad too, and just what I know about you, you and Julie are good people. You're well-grounded people. You're professional, and I don't see my kid that much. My kid will be in her mid-20s. I don't see her much.
Mhm.
I miss her, but I know I raised her right. I
Yeah,
raised
yeah,
her when she was big enough to get in the car seat. She was listening to Dawkins. She was listening to Rat.
yes, all right.
And she loves this music, just as much as I do. And believe it or not, she can rattle off some stuff that I told her 15 years ago that she still remembers who this band is and that band. So if you
It's awesome.
had your ultimate concert, okay,
Okay.
what three bands would be at your ultimate concert that you've always dreamed of going to?
Oh my God.
Come on, I'm gonna get you
Yeah,
off. I'm gonna hit you off here and make you think for a minute.
yeah, yeah. Well, the first band is this is the Hair Metal Rules podcast,
No,
but
whatever three band. No, no.
yeah,
What three bands would you want to be your
okay.
ultimate concert?
Yeah, well, it's gonna be uh the Church, an Australian band.
Yes.
They tour still to this day, making some of
Hmm.
their best music.
Hmm.
I've actually had the honor of DMing with a couple of the members a time or two, which you
Nice.
know how cool that is, especially
Oh
doing what you
yeah.
do. It
Sure.
would be the Church for sure. They are my favorite band. They've been for a long time. Then Robert Smith and The Cure. They've got to be in that. They've got to be up there too. Um, are we going retro or are we going today? Because I mean,
Anything
I,
you want, brother.
I mean, dude, Led Zeppelin, man. After seeing that movie yesterday, oh my
Right.
God.
How was that yesterday?
That movie was absolutely phenomenal. Okay. And it's not just recency bias that I'm having right now.
Sure.
Um, Bob Dylan movie a few weeks back was
Hmm.
amazing, and I still think it
Right.
was. But no, this Zeppelin movie really gave Zeppelin fans, hardcore Zeppelin fans, just a different look into things. It wasn't just like casual fan stuff. Like Jimmy Page was a great guitarist and so influential. We all know that. Everybody who watches your show knows
Right.
that. But what they did was they really showed how he was so masterful behind the soundboards and the knobs, how he was so heavily involved in the band's like marketing and distribution with Peter Grant and the record company, and the control that he kept. It was
Right.
absolutely amazing in that regard. Hearing the three guys plus John Bonham, they had some great, never heard before audio on him, which I've always heard but he sounded like one of the nicest gentlemen on the planet. Just
Sure.
the clips that they had of him too, for being that bopping drummer, just beating the heck out of the drums. Kindest, nicest guy. Robert Plant in there. Everyone's seen Robert Plant throughout the years. You know what he's
Right.
like, and he's fun. But John Paul Jones, too, the bass player, his perspectives telling the stories about the first and second album is what this movie was focused on.
Hmm.
he was like an excited little kid at almost 80 years old sitting there talking about this stuff. And it was just really cool to see him say that I think one of his biggest accomplishments was making his dad proud when he was
Right.
finally whatever stadium they filled or whatever it was, you know.
Right.
Anyhow, it really gives you an in-depth, different perspective on Zeppelin a little bit. That was amazing. So that's enough on that, I guess. But
No, no,
yeah.
I was going to ask you about that because I know we're going to see you and your wife recently went to go see it. You know, one of my favorite YouTube videos, and it always gets to me, is Hart singing "Stairway to Heaven." Have you
Oh
seen that
God.
at the Kennedy Center
Yes.
Honors? I think.
Numerous times because I love the performance and I love the fact that they're up there clapping and getting
Yes.
teary-eyed, man.
Thank you.
Yes.
That just you. That's a parent that's very proud of their child down there playing, and it's a shame, you know, Jason Bonham's dad wasn't there, you know, to see him play drums because
Yeah.
he's done his own thing over the years with the Bonham band, and he's got a Led Zeppelin, you know, tribute kind of band that he plays in. But I think it's great when you see artists that they have kids big enough, old enough, and they're doing their own thing. And you know what? You see a tear go down a dad's eye. That's a proud man.
Sure. Yeah. And he's playing with Sammy Hagar right now, right?
Right? Yes. Yes.
Jason Bonham. So yeah, I
Yes.
mean, with some of the most prevalent musicians in the industry right now still. So, but yeah, absolutely. That was a wonderful performance.
I would have to say, you know, I'm an '80s guy. I would have to say my ultimate three,
Hmm.
but we're going to go back to decades. Would be Duran Duran during the arena stage,
Hmm.
because Wild Boys was a great song. You know, that whole Arena Live album. I would have loved to have seen Leatherwolf play at the Whiskey A Go Go back in the day,
Wow. Oh my God. Yeah.
you know. And I would probably say, who would be my third? That's a tough one for me because there's so many bands I would love to have seen. I saw Skid Row when they were Skid Row. I've seen a lot of bands. Um, I would say it would have been cool to have seen the Beatles back in the 50s, what 60s. Because
Oh yeah.
man, you see images of those guys and they're walking out of a plane and women are fainting. I mean, can you imagine, imagine seeing all four of them, like, the first time, Ed Sullivan show, the Beatles, and they're out there playing, and, that would have been a cool band to have
Yeah.
seen, back in the day. Let me throw you off again. If you had a superpower, what would your superpower be?
Oh gosh. Superpower.
I know you like superhero stuff because I've seen some of the, movie. I know you're a big Star Wars fan, and good for you, brother.
Oh yeah, yeah. Superpower. I mean, flying and all that sounds great, but what about healing?
There you go. Be able to heal people. That's a good one.
Maybe.
Mine would
Maybe
always be to be invisible. That'd be
be
kind of cool.
invisible. Yeah.
I asked somebody that one time, and he said, "Yeah, being invisible would be cool because you could hear what everybody was saying, but then you might not like what they're saying about you, so you've
Right,
already
right.
heard it." You know what I mean?
Oh my, yeah. Maybe I don't know, wearing that Iron Man suit
That'd be
might
pretty
be
cool.
pretty rad too, man.
My next thing I want to watch, the new Captain America movie. I think that's good because I want to see a red Hulk. I want to see Han Solo turn into the Hulk.
Yeah, I mean that's yeah, I know. You got to. That
So
looks good, man.
taking you back to a kid. I remember my dad. I watched the first three Star Wars movies. My dad took me to all three. Well, it's not the first three. It was one, two, three, four, five, six, being the first Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. My dad took me every time they came out. I remember him taking me because, it was a treat for my dad to take me somewhere. He would have his suit and his necktie on. He would go take me to the movies. But that's a great childhood memory. And I can watch The Empire Strikes Back over and over and over again for the simple fact snow speeders were one of my favorite vehicles.
Oh yeah.
And the AT-AT
Yep. Oh,
was
those things are amazing.
that scene where they're flying on Hoth in the snow and they're taking those things down. And my other favorite character from Star Wars would have to be Boba Fett. He was
Yeah.
always Boba Fett, Bosk, Forlom, all those guys, the bounty hunters. You never saw them much, but you always wondered about them. But
Yeah.
who took you to go see Star Wars? Did you see it as a child or did you
Oh
see it
yeah.
later in life?
No, as a kid, all of them in the theater as a little toddler and that for sure. Yeah. And then, well, when did Return come out? 80, 81? I don't want to miss. I don't know. I'm not sure. But yeah, we saw them all
I
in the
know
theater.
Star Wars was 70, around 77, and you figure a couple of years later would have been Empire Strikes Back, maybe 79. So yeah,
Yeah.
80, 81, around then, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We saw them all in the theater. And I remember one of the greatest toys I ever got was for Christmas. Of course, waiting for my dad to bring down the presents. And of course, he always made us wait like incredibly a long amount of time. And so I got the actual Death Star, that Hasbro, that
Nice.
original, like that
Yeah.
2 or 3 panel Death Star, like so cheesy now, but
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
that was awesome.
That I remember I didn't get a whole lot for Christmas. I got what I needed. My parents weren't the richest, but I got what I needed and I got some things that I wanted. But I remember it was so cool coming downstairs on Christmas morning and finding carded action figures,
Oh
you know,
yeah.
and they would be down in the carpet where they would stand up, you know,
Yeah.
and
Oh, nice. Yeah.
and one year I got 4 carded figures and I got a TIE fighter.
Oh,
That
the one that they fit into, like the actual.
Yeah, the actual
Oh,
TIE
oh
fighter.
yeah. Oh my God, I never had that. That's
And
awesome.
and I got an X-Wing fighter the next year that Luke Skywalker flew, and I actually got the Death Star PlayStation.
Yeah,
It
that
was
that was it,
about
right?
it
Yep.
was about this tall. And it had cardboard, it had a trash compactor in the bottom with a little
That little
foam in
snake.
it. Yeah, with
Yeah.
that little monster in it. And I
Yeah.
played with that thing, and I sure wish I still had that thing today. But I do have my Star Wars figures from back in the day.
No, yeah, that's great. Do you have any of them still carded or no?
I wish they were still carded, sir, but no, they're not. They are well played with because, man, I was an only child and my parents had a huge living room, and that was my world flying. The TIE fighter, you mash the sides of it, and the TIE fighter panels would fly off like
Yeah.
it was
Oh, I
being
remember.
broke. And I got a
Yeah.
snow speeder one year because I was all into Empire, all into that. And the snow speeder had little things that would shoot out of, and it had the little grappler hook on the back that hung down probably about that far. So I would
Yeah.
hang Luke Skywalker off of it, fly it all through the living room. But good times being a child. More memories. I'm glad you like Star Wars. As a matter of
Oh, I
fact,
love it.
I had a bunch of figures that I had, and when we went to McKay Saturday,
Yeah.
they take trade-ins or buys.
Oh,
They'll
yeah.
give you store credit or they'll give you cash for it. And I had a bunch of Funko Pops and some double Star Wars figures, 2 of them that I had, and I turned them in and got some money and some store credit. That's why I got the CDs I was showing you.
Yeah. Chicago music scene,
Okay,
maybe a little bit of that
go ahead,
because
sure,
I
yeah.
know,
Tell me about it.
the focus is primarily the Sunset Strip, LA, and
Yeah.
all the stuff that Justin Saney and all the many folks who have been on here have shared their stories about. I've never been there, but the Chicago music scene is what I would know, at least my own experiences from. And you saw a
Yeah.
lot of the same bands, and being Chicago, that kind of stretches you up north into Troy, Wisconsin, where you got Alpine Valley. And
Right.
then it also, just an hour south, you got Northwest Indiana, where you had the Holiday Star Theater in Merrillville, and different places that we would go often. We saw Poison there. There are a group of us just actually reminisced on a post of mine on Instagram some couple months back about that one. But so yeah, and then you had like the smaller place like Park West, the Metro, Avalon, the Aragon Ballroom, and all that. We got to see all those bands. And we were always going to concerts too, being into music like that, going to
Right.
see them. And being one of the biggest cities, there's a lot of opportunity for that too. So
Sure.
one of the best memories, one of the places with the best memories is a little place in River Grove, a suburb of Chicago. It's called the Thirsty Whale. And kind of like you said, would you say the Flaming Mug was a
The
little
flaming
place?
mug. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
This was our Flaming Mug, I suppose, but they
Sure.
had all of, I mean, dude, they had Quiet Riot there, Rat, Dangerous Toys, Danger, and you got all the heavy hitters in there too, like Overkill, Nuclear Assault, Flotsam and Jetsam.
Wow.
Survivor would play there regularly. So yeah, it was a tiny place, but it was that was great to see all those bands there too throughout the 80s and 90s for sure. And it's closed. It's since closed, but those were some great times for Chicago music anyway. That's what I
It's
got.
it's cool. That like I said, the flaming mug was not much bigger than half of this house here. Had a
Right, yeah.
stage, had a pool table, a couple pool tables, a bar. And I've said on the show before, either you had big hair, you had a military haircut because it was right 5 minutes from Fort Bragg where the mug was, or you were an average person that like I was at the time, and you know just walking in that place, Tom, and when you walked in the wall there, people had signed the wall
Yeah, right. Yes, yeah. That's
that
awesome.
that had played there, and the men's bathroom, people had signed the wall. And I know back where the dressing room is. I would love. I told Roy Cathy when he was on the show. I said, "Man, I love to have that sheetrock off the wall and put it up somewhere, just
How
to,
about
just to
that?
see the people that play." But you know what my point was back then. You didn't realize just how many people came that were huge people. I didn't realize. I follow the Flaming Mug actually has a Facebook page.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
So follow them and go on there and you'll see a
I
lot
have
of
to. Yeah.
yeah, you'll
Yeah.
see a lot of the they even have like they posted today a listing for the whole month. I remember forgot what month it was, but Jackal was playing there. A band called Steel Rain was playing there. That was when Cold Sweat and Sabotage was playing, and that
Yeah.
would have been the night that I went and saw Cold Sweat and Sabotage. But it's just it's just neat, but you didn't realize it back at the time. It was just a I didn't get to go to the Flaming Mug a lot. Don't get me wrong, because my parents were so strict. But the people that went there, I mean, people went there every weekend, and it's just amazing. You sit back and think, man, I saw Rat, I saw Dokken, I saw Warrant, and you wouldn't think those big bands would go through a small place like that. But
Yeah.
they had a twin in Raleigh called the Switch, and if they played Raleigh, they played in the Switch the next night. But you know,
Oh, okay.
so many of those. And I was talking to Roy, and he said, those small places like that, Thirsty Whale, those were big places for us to go, and we got more attention going to small places like that than going to a big arena. You actually got more fan base because you collaborated with those people. When Cold Sweat got through playing, uh, uh, Mark Ferrari was out there shooting pool. Roy Kelly
That's so
was at
cool.
the bar
Right. That's
drinking a beer. You could walk
yeah.
right up to them and talk to them, and they got a lot more attention and fan bases, back then. But the under the radar podcast I'm trying to do, we talk about the Leather Wolves, we talk about the Fates warnings, but you probably know some yourself. There were a lot of bands, regional bands, that were huge that you saw their name in a BAM magazine, or you might have saw their name in a Metal Edge magazine, but they just never made the big time. But Tom, they had music that would kill Skid Row. They had music that would blow
Yeah.
Leatherwolf away, and they just never. They were huge in Chicago. They were huge in on the East Coast, they were huge on the West Coast, but they never went to Hollywood. You know,
It's what is it about is it just about the right connections at the right time and just the lucky break? I mean, yeah, because the talent is all, the
sure.
talent might be all similar, but yeah, it's just you don't know
But you know, I
why
always,
some.
just my ignorance and learning, I all thought everybody went to Hollywood. If you didn't go to Hollywood, you didn't get noticed. But you had the whole East Coast thing. I mean, you're pulling Skid Row out of there. You're pulling Cinderella out of there. You're
Mhm.
pulling Soraya out of there.
Bon
You're
Jovi,
Bon
yeah,
Jovi out of there. Yes, there. The scene there was just as big, and I was just always curious. The guys out there in Hollywood, the record. You've seen Decline of Western Civilization. Record execs. You've seen The Dirt. I mean,
yeah.
records execs followed those guys around. Uh, the Tom Tracey band's playing at the Whiskey tonight. We need to go check them out. Okay, we're all going to offer you a record contract. But it's those guys on the East Coast, they got huge too. I don't know how, if it was, they got put on MTV.
Yeah, right.
You
There's
know
your
what I'm
exposure,
saying?
right? Hmm.
If it wasn't for Bon Jovi, there would have been no Cinderella. If it wasn't for Bon Jovi, there wouldn't have been a Skid Row, because Bon Jovi picks Skid Row up and takes them on their first tour when the first Skid
Yeah.
Row album comes out. Cinderella was big in Philadelphia. Bon Jovi helped them get a record contract. So I guess you had a lot of influencers out there that were
Mhm.
seeing these bands, and we're going to take them on tour, and then all of a sudden they've blown up huge.
You got to get to work. You got to keep playing a show. I mean, Dave Grohl says that, right?
Yes.
He's like, go play shows, go play a show, go play live anywhere, get out there and keep working, I mean, I love that work ethic, of course,
Oh yeah.
but yeah. And then you're the lucky break. I don't know. How does that lucky break happen? I don't know.
Well, I
But as long as
know.
you're out there, if
Yeah,
you're
as
out there
long as you're out there
working,
playing, yeah.
right. You
I
got,
know. Go ahead.
you got good chance, a better chance,
Sure.
you increase your odds. That's it, I guess. I don't know.
Well, I know if you ever picked the right lottery ticket and got played on the Headbangers Ball, and then got to daytime television, Dial MTV, the Hard 30, that kind of stuff,
Mhm.
and you got exposure on there, you got huge. I remember coming home, after high school, and the Hard 30 was on for 30 minutes.
Yep.
Hair bands. They played they played Lita Ford on there constantly. That was when Still of the Night came out. That was when Madeline from Winger came out. You pretty much knew who was going to be on there, and then next thing you know, they're on Dial MTV, and you know, MTV propelled a whole lot of people to super stardom, and
Yeah.
you
So
know,
then what? Your exposure to those opportunities is going to come through what? Management, your management,
I would
or
say I would.
you know,
That's the whole. The like I say, the West Coast, those guys went out there. A lot of them, not all of them. A lot of them went out there and stayed. Like we talked about Sweet Savage. Sweet Savage was one of the last unsigned bands. But when Chris explained everything, we didn't stay when we started out. We didn't stay. We didn't stay there. We played there for a little bit. Then we went and kicked butt in Texas and made money.
yep.
We played and played and played, made money. Then we went up toward Ohio. We had the money from Texas. We went to Ohio and played and played and played. Then we would go back to the strip when we had the money to go back. And then eventually they stayed, on the strip, and tried to get the record deal. But man, Tom, there's so many. We could talk about hair metal for hair metal for forever. Because Tom, you're my friend, and I admire you. I love your takes in the mornings with your toboggan on. I call it a toboggan. I don't know what you call it. I'm from the South, so it's a
Love
toboggan
it.
to me.
Beanie, sure.
Beanie
Toboggan, I love it.
toboggan. And like I say, we can go. You're like my friend John Kelly that I went to high school with. He's been my John Kelly's been my ride or die for many, many years. And I cannot talk to that guy for a year. And he can send me a text message and we'll pick right back up where we left off, talking about the good old days. Cause me and John Kelly, we wore out Operation Mindcrime. We wore some treble tracks out on that CD because he had a
Okay, that's
boom
a friend.
box. Yeah, he had a boom box and just lots of memories of youth. That's what I want everybody to take away from what you hear here,
Mhm.
what you leave with. You know, that's one thing. There's a lot of things that could be taken away from us in life, but memories are one thing nobody can ever take away from us.
Yeah.
And like I was saying, you're a good friend. You've done a whole lot to help me, and I'm gracious to you. We have a lot of fun chit chatting back and forth, and I'm glad you have discovered some new music. And
Oh,
like I told you when we talked a little bit earlier, man, if I could have an '80s page, there's some great '80s stuff out there. I can make videos for years and never get through it all.
yeah, man. Hey, man, the feeling's mutual. I mean, I love our friendship because we just jump right into music and it just rolls and it just goes and it goes on and on. And it's just awesome. It's amazing what you're building here because you're such a genuine dude is really like I've typed once. I think it's much bigger than maybe what you even know. All of us in this community that we've said, we're becoming good friends. We,
Sure.
share things and encouragement at times, just jokes, music, what I'm listening to and all that. It's just amazing. It's really awesome. And we were just two dudes on Instagram that were like, yeah, Operation Mindcrime is awesome.
Well, Tom, I've enjoyed it. I hope you have too. You're a busy man. You got stuff to do. I appreciate you, brother.
Oh gosh, same. Yeah, we're all busy. We're all busy. It's just a matter of finding. I don't know. It was so great last week. You asked me. It was maybe Thursday, Wednesday, Thursday. You're like,
That's about
hey,
right.
can you take a call at 6 o'clock in a few hours? And I was like, I love it. I love it. Just impromptu, spontaneous, boom,
Sure.
do it. And so, I mean, it didn't quite happen then,
Oh
but it,
yeah,
it
yeah,
happened a
right.
couple days later, which that kind of thing that works out great. I love the spontaneity of it all.
Well, I appreciate you coming on, man. Like I say, I hope you had a good time, and we'll get it we'll get it up on YouTube soon, and
Fun, man, fun.
we'll keep talking, brother.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, man. Big J, it was amazing. I was so excited. I was like, a little nervous. I'm like, what am I don't know. We're just chatting. We're just chatting. And once I realized we're just gonna talk about music and who cares, then I was like, all right.
I don't like I said, I don't have a piece of paper in front of me saying, okay, question number one, question number no. I tried that mess a long time ago, but you know what? When you get on this podcast, I just want people to talk about memories, talk about fun stuff, the artists. Give me some stories.
Amen, man.
All right, man. Well, you take care.
You too. Love you, brother.
Love you too, man. Talk to you soon. Thank you
See you,
again.
bud.
Bye
Yep.
bye.